of like any food. It could be a fast food chain or not. She would wait till they get to the counter and be like, oh, I can't pay for you. And at first I thought it was like an honest mistake, but then I started seeing the pattern. Burma was trying to make me stay, and I was like, I don't want to stay though. I don't want to sleep over someone's house and being forced to sleep over. Like, what made you want to be my friend?
Oh, well, I thought you were a very beautiful person of color cosplayer dressed up as Belle.
Really? That's... Like, I'm sorry if I'm venting. She goes,
no, it's okay. He just probably thinks I'm an N lover.
okay, so I'm gonna redo the video I had before because I don't know if it was good enough. Okay, woo, okay, nice. Nice. Hi guys, today we're going to be talking a little bit of a story time. I like to call it Kawaii story time, just because I'm gonna look cute while I tell a story. So yeah, if you like these kind of like videos, go ahead and hit the like for the, let me know if I should continue this story collection. Or if you're enjoying the story, let me know down below what's the craziest stories that you've had or friendships you've had, because that's what today's video is about. Stay subscribed to get notified of my kawaii lifestyle and my stories here, and hit the bell notification to let you keep informed whenever I have a new video coming out, because YouTube be slipping. I know I told it the first time through this video, kind of like recorded it while I was doing my makeup and my hair, but I think I'm gonna just retell it just to be on the safer side. But it's about this girl who I'm gonna use the name Burma, and then there's another guy that comes later in the story. I'm gonna use his name as Ben. Hopefully, I do not have all this written down because it's so traumatic. I remember it by memory. Sadness. As you guys know me, I live on my own, and the reason why I tell these stories is because it's to kind of show you why I don't hang out with friends physically at the moment. There are some friends I do hang out with, but it's very few between, because like I've been around a lot of toxic people in my life, so I decided to change my lifestyle up and be around very positive people. Why is my highlighter being a butt? There's a lot of things that have happened to me. Let me fix my highlighter because this is slipping. Hold on. With this friendship, it was very, very challenging for me because they abused me in different ways. It's not physical abuse, it's emotional and verbal. I felt like it was mental abuse. Me and this person met at a convention. If you guys don't know, in the state that I currently live, I've been living here for almost 5 to 6 years, and I moved here because my mom needed help taking care of my great-grandmother who lives on her own. So, and I thought it'd be a brand new start for me. Kind of like a long story short. I helped my mom sometimes take care of my great-grandmother or try to be there as much as I can. I went to some of the conventions here and I did make some friends, but then there's specifically a person I met and I should have never became this person's friend. I should have just left it alone and been distant because they never knew how to be around. And unfortunately, it was Burma. Burma was someone I met at a convention. It was like my second or third time being in the state, so it was like a convention I already met other con friends. There's another friend I was there, I'm gonna name her Mickey because I don't want to name her real name. Mickey was a friend that was a redhead friend who was older than me, but we used to hang out a lot at cons. And it was hard for me to hang out with Mickey sometimes because she is older, so some cons she went to, sometimes she didn't. She worked in a very high executive job, so I didn't want to bother her all the time. But then there was a girl, when I was hanging out with Mickey, there was another girl who dressed up as a Danganronpa character. I don't know if it's from like 2 or 3, but it wasn't from the first one. I do remember that much. I remember she dressed as that and I was like, oh cool, she seems very outgoing and stuff. She was just very upfront with everything, how she felt, and I was like, oh cool. And sometimes I bounce off of other people's energy. Cool, I could be extrovert now because I could be as talkative as them because they're showing that back. I try to just keep my energy at a timid level. While we're at the con, I start noticing I don't spend as much time with Mickey because she's either busy or she can't make it on time, or I think she made it 2 out of the 3 days, and like 1 day to be together and the other day I was by myself. So it was a little hard, and I think later on when I met Burma, she was there with her sister and I think another friend. So, you know, we started hanging out sometimes when I wasn't hanging out with Mickey, and it seemed pretty good at the time. But then after a while, I noticed Mickey had to leave early, and I told Burma, I was like, I might be by myself, but it's fine because I'm used to being by myself. I was a little sad, but I was okay with it. So she's like, why don't you come up and hang out with us after the con's over for today? You know, we're gonna go to Burger King and eat for a little bit if you have time. And I was like, sure. When me, her sister, and her friend all went to Burger King, it seemed really nice. One red flag I should have noticed was the fact that Burma was acting differently, and I say that not because I knew her then, but you can tell when you're around a friend and another friend sees you acting differently, their face expression changes, their body language will be like, what the hell are you doing? When I first meet people, you know, there's that awkward interaction, but it felt like Burma was trying really, really hard to be my friend. And I say that because she was like always asking certain specific questions about what I do and what I like. And it seemed like she was interested, but then you could tell like her friend kept giving her the side eye, like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, we're not on a date. Like, a little distant, because you can tell like she felt very uncomfortable by Burma's energy. And at the time I thought, oh, maybe her friend just doesn't like me, or maybe her friend is just shy or something. Maybe that's why she's giving her side glances. She was so quickly ready to invest. And I've learned this not just from also therapy or psychology, but when someone's like so interested in every little thing that you do instead of getting to know you, it's more of a thought of how can this person interest me, and what can I take away from this person to help me out. I can tell when someone just wants to get to know the idea of me more than just who I am. I should have figured that out, but I was pretty young then. But it is a lesson that I definitely had learned now. Now that I'm looking back on this, like, there's still parts of this story I'm still shocked about. As we're talking, you know, we go to our own separate cars after we finish eating, and she's like, I'll talk to you later, you know, because we exchange numbers or whatever. Then after that, we would hang out sometimes here and there besides at con. But then I realized like we both stopped going to cons because we got so busy with adult life. So we started hanging out in real life, just as friends. And that's where things started getting a little bit because I say because I didn't know how to feel about it at the time, but now as an adult, pretty With that, I was actually, you know, I had a job that was like $11 to $12 an hour, so I was barely paying my own rent. I remember I was telling her about that, and I was like, I never really have time for friends because I'm always working a lot, and sometimes people I work with are either older than me or they have their own life set, so they don't really have time for me if I don't really have similar things that they're interested in. It's not bad, and I should have took a lot of that time to just put it into my YouTube. As we started hanging out more as adults, there was a few things I did notice about this friend. There's a lot of things I noticed, I just didn't do anything about it. There were times when we used to hang out, we used to eat together, and this became a routine, and I noticed it. We would always wait until we get to the counter of like any food, it could be a fast food chain or not, and wait, or like a drive-through. She would wait till they get to the counter and be like,
oh, I can't pay for you.
And I remember she would always do that. And at first I thought it was like an honest mistake, but then I started seeing the pattern. Even back then I knew I was not okay with it. So I was still pretty outspoken back then. And I told her, I was like, hey, I don't really like when you do that. I really would like if you can be honest with me and just tell me ahead of time, like, hey, you can't pay for me, because it is rather embarrassing that every time you say you'll get me. And I asked her many times, like, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? And then she would wait until she gets up to the counter, like literally every time, and say,
oh, I can't pay for you, you have to pay for yourself. Like
right in front of a person every single time. I don't know, some people might think that's like, oh, she's gaslighting me, oh, she's manipulating me, she hates me, really. It could be all those things, but it's still not okay. Even if you were generally doing that by accident, it's still not okay to do that to your friend. It kept making me feel like, oh, okay, I'm broke, I get it. Just say you can't. Don't say maybe, because there was a time she actually did that and said maybe, and I was like, I'm not okay with that. And I had to embarrass her at one point, and she was like,
oh, I'm so sorry.
I was like, no, it's fine. Even though I already told you this in the car, please don't ever do this again. And I paid for my own food. She felt so embarrassed. She never did that again. It's just sad. I shouldn't have to embarrass you to make you realize that that was not okay to do. It's just not. But continuing on with the story, that's one huge red flag besides the obvious one that I told you in the beginning. After that, we would hang out, but like it would be more minimal, because she's like,
oh, I'm not making as much money, so we can't hang out to eat.
I was like, we don't have to always go out to eat, Burma, to hang out. You can hang out at my house, or we can go somewhere small. You know, friendship hangouts shouldn't be like a dating schedule. When you want to hang out with someone, you should just hang out. It doesn't matter what you do, you're just yourself around them. That's another thing I noticed about the friendship. Like, it kept being forced, and I was like, I'm not forcing you to do anything. Because even when I had a friend growing up, we just would hang out with each other at each other's house and just do simple things. Or if you want to do things with friends that are planned, that's okay too. But don't give me excuses why you don't want to be my friend when you should just be my friend. At first I kept feeling like it was my fault for everything, but it wasn't, because if I'm putting myself into this friendship just as much as another person should, we both should not be feeling awkward or uncomfortable. Just say, hey, I can't make time for you because I'm a bit busy, but hey, let's set up for this time. Like, if you're really interested in someone, you would do that. That's not how the friendship went. And this is when I realized I shouldn't be settling for less from friendships or relationships. That's why it's always good to be by yourself, because you're a high value person. That's what it makes sense. When we would hang out at my house sometimes, we were having fun. Like, I would cook chicken, she would bring over the drinks, and we would have girl time and catch up. And it was really nice. Like, we had good times, don't get me wrong. Then it started becoming very uncomfortable because there was this one incident that I didn't like. Yeah, I'll bring up that incident before I bring up the racial stuff, because she did bring up some racial stuff that I didn't like. This is outside the racial part, so just so people can have an understanding. There was something that she said later on that was a bit racist besides the other two things that ended the friendship. One of the things that she did was we were hanging out one time and she's telling me about the D&D group, and she would always tell me about it, and I was like, oh, that's really nice. She's like, you should come sometime. I'm like, well, I'll think about it. I have to check my schedule because I was working a different job than I was previously, so it was a little bit hard for me sometimes, especially with holiday hours. We were hanging out one day and then she's like,
oh, I have D&D tonight. I can't really hang out today.
I was like, oh, that's okay. We'll hang out another time. And she's like,
well, if you really want to come, we're just doing the thing. You know, I know you talked about going before.
and I was like, yeah, but I don't want to intrude. I don't want to just come by and just drop on by like whenever I feel like it.
Well, if you want to, you're open to it.
Okay, cool. I guess I'll go. She picked me up and we drove over to Ben's house. That's the guy. So we were hanging out at Ben's house with the D&D group. We're waiting for everyone to get there. She's introducing me to Ben because like no one else is there to start the session. And we're talking back and forth, being cordial, but I could tell like from the corner of my eye, like she's giving me that eye look.
Like, they seem like something.
No, honey. This ain't nothing. This ain't nothing. This is not anything. I don't mind talking to people and being like charismatic or just conversational, but it doesn't mean that there's any chemistry there. It's just being conversation. Like when the group came, people were like, oh, you're very pretty. That's why they thought dropped it. I'm like, yeah, that's nice and all, but like I'm still a person, bro. Like I'm a person beyond this face. Remember we were talking and it seemed like a really fun session because I was new to everything, so people were really nice and showing me everything, and I was like, this is a really nice session. So we go back into the car, driving me back home. She's like, hey, what'd you think of it? I was like, yeah, it was really nice and it was really funny, like talking about different funny parts that happened in the session. Remember she was talking to me and she was saying like,
oh, what'd you think of Ben?
and I'm like, okay, what about Ben, bro? I was like, and she's like,
well, he seemed like he was interested in you. You guys seemed like you had a really great time.
oh god. She's being that mom role that you find in every fucking Hallmark movie. Like, oh, what'd you think of that guy? I mean, it could work. Bitch, stop. Like I do not like when people set me up. If I feel something, it's different. Like, and I know she's trying to be nice, so I let it go. I was like, we're just friends. It's really nice. And he seemed like a nice guy, and that was it. Because that's all it was. Like, he was actually generally being gentlemanlike. And I was like, it was nice. That was it. Because I'm very confident in what I like and don't like in a person. And I've told her about different stories about how things didn't work out for me. But I guess this is one of her ways of trying to make me be with someone. Next time we hung out, I think she wanted to hang out again at the group session. She said Ben was interested in me. And I was like, well, I'm not really interested in him in that way. She persuaded me to think like, hey, why don't you just at least go on one date with him? It can't hurt. No, but she kept badgering me about it. And so after a while, I was like, okay, well, if I go on this date, you can't say I didn't do it. And if I don't like him, I don't like him. But I think she took that as a challenge. So when the date came, because we exchanged numbers and stuff, and I guess everyone else found out about it, but like, I don't know if he said anything to them. She's just telling everybody how I feel, because it just became very uncomfortable after that. We went to one session because we were just talking nicely and cordially and just saying, and he's like, yeah, I just really wish that people, like, because he was telling me, and should have been a red flag on him, because he was telling me like how close they were, like him and Burma were before, and how they did hang out one time, but it never really worked out. And I'm like, what do you mean worked out? You guys are friends. What are you talking about? Where he started talking about different women he was with, that they would never tell him the truth about how they feel about him, and he would get upset because he felt led on. And I'm like, is it really led on, or okay? When we went on the date, it seemed nice. I had my friend spend the day here because she had to do laundry anyways. I was like, hey, can you watch my dog while I go on this date? And she's like, oh, I'd love to. It'd be great for me because I have to do laundry and people at my house are doing it. Ben comes by and picks me up, and I was like, oh, cool, because I just saw him the night before. It was very awkward the night before because they had a session the night before, and it seemed okay, but then it seemed forced. He knew that I was coming over with Burma to his house, like where they have the sessions, because he's the GM. I don't know if she told him my first Disney movie, because I grew up watching Disney movies. Well, the first movie I ever saw was Lady and the Tramp, because I was 2 years old. That's my first ever Disney movie. Doesn't mean it's my favorite. We were going over to his house and he made like a bunch of spaghetti. I think she told him that I grew up in New York, so like I'm used to like New York and food. I don't know what she said to him. She said something. He made like a bunch of spaghetti, some garlic bread, and he's like, do you want wine? I'm like, bitch, why would I want wine? You're about to have a D&D session. What the hell do you think I'm ready for this? After that whole weird like dinner thing, because we were about to eat, and he's like, no, I want to wait for everyone to get here. And then when the guys come, they're like, oh my gosh, what's all this food for? Like, they're trying to hype him up, make him seem like a good guy, which I already know he's a good guy, but that made me very uncomfortable. It felt like a pressure to appease to him, and I didn't like that. Like, oh, this food's really good, isn't it, Joman? I'm like, yeah, it's fine, it's great. Are you sure? Do you want me to cook you this? I'm like, no, I'm fine. Like, I was just trying to eat and enjoy it, and like but every little thing I kept doing, they kept like making it a thing, and I was like, okay, this is making me very highly uncomfortable. I just stopped saying anything, and I didn't really fit in with the D&D session, so I just like left it alone. Not because I don't like playing it, it's just like you can tell the vibe was off. Felt like I was such a newbie. Like they kept trying to force me, like, oh no, you have to do this, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. But they like kept hassling me about every little mistake I would make, instead of just being nice about it like they did in the beginning. After that whole session ended, like we were just chilling and stuff, and the guys were leaving, like, cause it was getting late. We were hanging out, we watched the movie. Burma was trying to make me stay, and I was like, I don't want to stay though. Cause I know he did like a house tour when we were there, like before the guys got there, because we were so early. She kept trying to make me stay cause I was really, really tired, cause it was like, I think after work or something, and we were supposed to hang out, just us girls. I got off work that Saturday, and then the date was Sunday. Just stay over. I'm like, no, I'm not staying over, Burma. And she's like everyone was kind of scared because like I was trying to be nice about it, but they kept like peer pressuring me into it besides her, and I was like, I'm going home, damn it. And then she was like,
Is everything okay?
like when we got in the car, I'm like, no, everything's great, I just want to go home. Like I was just tired, dude. I don't want to sleep over someone's house and being forced sleepover, especially if we haven't even gone on the date yet and you're forced. That's just a red flag. Red flag everywhere. Red flag. I went home. The next day was the date, and he came over. I was scared. I was scared. I went to the car and he's like, oh, that's nice. How are you? I was like, good. I look over at him. This bitch is wearing the same exact clothes. Exact clothes. The same belt, pants, shirt, shoes. Like the same undershirt. I was terrified. I was like, did this bitch even shower? And I say this because he told us like earlier that day he worked and he went outside, he went grocery shopping the day of the D&D session. So you would think he would at least change his clothes or wash up. This is a fucking date. He wore the same exact clothes. I was like, oh no. Like I was scared. I was like, I'm great. Like I'm not joking. The first 30 minutes to an hour, I didn't even want to touch him. I didn't even want to be near him. I didn't even want to be in his car because I didn't know how clean it was. That may seem like an extreme, but if you can't keep your body clean, what else are you keeping clean? I don't want to know. So at that point, he was driving to where we were going to go eat first, which is this Indian restaurant that he picked out. So we were talking on the way, and I was like, ask him how he knew Burma, and he was like, oh,
I know Burma because we went on this one hangout, but then things didn't work out.
I was like, well, what do you mean?
Oh, well, it happened almost 6 to 7 months ago when she started being more regular in the D&D sessions, and
then he paused and he's like,
and then we just stopped talking.
And so I thought that was kind of weird because I'm like, well, she told me they never had any kind of romantic relationship, but that's kind of weird. Do you know what I mean? So I was like, okay. This was like a weird flag, but I chose to keep it to myself and then just keep going on about the date so I know what to protect myself from. We go on the date, we eat the food. It's a finger food kind of like Indian restaurant place, so I have to like, I was being careful of how I was eating. I was paying attention to how he was eating, and it's not because his fingers would get dirty or whatever, but a lot of stuff kept falling on his shirt, and I was like, I'm so disgusted right now. Not just you wearing the exact same shit as yesterday. Like, it's okay if it's like 1 or 2 things, because I know it's really hard to eat finger food, especially like sometimes multicultural food. But the fact food kept falling on your shirt constantly, I'm scared on how clean you really are, homie. So like, I was like, I'm not hungry anymore. And normally, anyone who knows me, I love to eat. I know females always say that, I love to eat. No, I was literally a fat baby growing up. I was so disgusted. I was like, yeah, I can't eat. He's like,
Really? What's wrong with you?
nothing. I'm just not hungry anymore. That, you know, he pays the bill, and I told him, I was like, oh, I can pay. He's like, no, I'll pay. I was like, are you sure? He's like, yeah. We got so many stairs on top of everything. Like, he's a different race than me on top of that. And like, I dress very cutesy and stuff, very quiet. We already got looks anyways, but like, it was already uncomfortable because he was also eating like, okay, you know that scene in Beauty and the Beast where the Beast is eating soup for the first time, and then like Belle has to eat soup like this instead of using the utensils, and he's like, oh, that's literally the scene that happened in that date. It was just more disgusting because I was like, ugh. As we're continuing this date, we go to round 1 and we're trying to have a good time. Like, right, we were playing on these different games because he's like, oh, I have some leftover tokens on my thing. He's like, because we could stay all day here. I was like, no, it's fine. Let's just use the ones you have. At this point of the date, I just wanted it to end. Later on, after we play games, he's like,
Do you want to hold my hand?
No. We did have a good time on the date, but I felt very uncomfortable. He asked to hold my hand, and I was trying to be nice about it. I was like, actually, I don't want to hold hands. I'm just kind of like sweaty in my hands right now. I don't really want to. He's like,
That's okay, I don't mind.
but I mind. And then he got mad. He got quiet, and then he got mad. After a while, he stopped keeping pace with me when we were walking over to go to the bowling alley part. He like walked fast purposely, and then tried to talk to the lady at the booth. And the lady at the booth was like, what the f? I was like, I don't know what that is. Because he goes, do you want to hold my hand? And then you can see his hand like trying to be outreach. The fact that I have to explain that to you says you don't really care about me. I put that back on because my lips are like kind of little. So after he did that immature walk off and then pretend like he didn't do it, as soon as I walked up to the booth with him like a few seconds after, paid for one game of bowling because he wanted to make the date longer, but I was like, no dude, tomorrow is Monday. I can go on this date with you Sunday, but that's it. I remember this because later on after we had time bowling, because we did have a good time, but he kept trying to force something else to happen. Every time I said no, he would like try to ask me to do more, like try to convince me, and I'm like, no, I don't want to do it. Just understand that. I just want to have a good time on the date and just go home. And that's why, like, when I told him on the date I wanted to drive myself because I have my own car, I should have just drove myself. After we had the bowling, we were walking down because we were going to exit because they were going to close for the day. And he's like, oh, well, what are you going to be doing right now? He's like, well, what are you doing after the date? Because I know that's a normal common question. Like, oh, well, I got to go do laundry. I got to get ready for work tomorrow.
And he's like, oh, well, you could do that at my house. We can just watch this movie, Lady and the Tramp. And I was like,
no, I'm good. I know that's when Disney Plus came out, like really started coming out for more shows and movies. To focus on getting ready for work because I have to make lunch, I have to do all that stuff because I used to work in an office. I was really upset, like I had an upset mindset because he kept trying to ask me to do more stuff with him. He's like, well, you can just come over to my house then. I said, no, I want to go home. And it got quiet between us. I was like, I'm going home. And then it was a little bit of a quiet ride home. And you could tell he felt a little defeated, and I was like, look, I appreciate the time we had. I just want to go home. I need to get some stuff done.
like, okay. He's like, well, can I at least walk you to the door?
I was like, okay, fine. Because I felt guilty, but at the same time, I should have just said no. Because people will use your benefits to your advantage. He kept saying, like, it takes too long to take off his boots to come in my house. If you're coming into someone's house after they invited you in, it's just common courtesy to take off your shoes. It doesn't matter how long it takes. That's disrespectful in its own when I said, please take off your shoes before you come in my house.
He's like, no, I'll just stand by the door.
And then Burma over here sitting on my couch.
Oh, you could just walk right in.
Bitch, this ain't your house. I'm gonna kick both y'all out. What's wrong with you? Oh, he walks in with his like dirty Timberland boots. Chemistry was definitely dead. Not even existent. So at this point, he walks over on the couch because she invites him to do so. I'm like, hey guys, I keep warning them that I have stuff to do. I have things to do. She goes,
Well, it's fine. You can do them around the house while I'm talking to him.
she's like one of those like Hallmark Karen moms that like keep trying to like,
Oh, well, you guys have that in common. Isn't that so funny?
oh god. So like when he finally left, because I literally had to make sure they felt so uncomfortable that he had to leave. They kept trying to stay in my house and talking to each other. They're like, what are you doing? What are you? I was like, I'm playing games. I'm just waiting for you guys to enjoy your conversation because I have to get ready to get a bed and do laundry, and since you're doing your laundry, I gotta wait. Then after that, he was like, okay, well, I gotta go. And I was like, okay, well, have a good night.
Like, aren't you gonna say bye to him or walk him to his car?
I was like, no, bye. I was just not having it. I was just like, leave me alone in my own house. After he left, she and I were talking, and she's like, well, why didn't you be more engaged in this? I was like, I'm not interested, Burma. I appreciate it, but I don't want to be with someone I don't want to be with. The date thing, like you told me, and it didn't work. I didn't like him. She's like,
Well, it's just because you're not trying hard enough.
like, bitch, I don't like him. What part of that do you not understand? Like, I don't like him, and that's okay. Why are you forcing this? She's like,
I'm just saying, like, you could at least try to be a little more understanding.
I was like, no, I'm not being more understanding. She goes,
What part did you not like?
I said everything, and as I listed off those different things I mentioned to you, she kept trying to like persuade me or give me examples of like
People that you're looking for are not always what you expect them to be.
I'm like, that is true, but in this situation, I didn't feel any connection. I was not romantically, intellectually, emotionally, any kind of attracted to this man, but just being a friend. I tried it and it didn't work. And there's a lot of things also wrong with him that I didn't like anyways. Wasn't gonna work anyways. I was just like, no, I'm sorry. I appreciate it so much, Burma, but like, it's just not working. So she got mad at me. We were discussing it at this point. It was just a disagreement between us, the discussion. She's like,
Well, I just don't understand what you don't like about him.
I was like, I'm not attracted to him. I don't like him. I don't understand why you feel the need to keep forcing it. She goes, well,
I just don't want you to regret this.
I was like, why would I regret something I don't want if it's not for me? Because the right person will come in my life when I need them to. I asked her, why are you forcing this? She goes,
Well, I don't want two of my friends that are single that are really looking for love and it doesn't work out for them to be lonely. I mean, you guys can be better together.
I was like, okay, first of all, you do not do that. You do not force two single friends to be together because you think it's great for them to be together so they're not alone. One person doesn't like it and the other person does. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to tell the other friend, hey, it didn't work out. And yeah, that might hurt your other friend, but at least you were honest with them. It could be a lot more worse. So the fact that you're forcing me so you could feel better about it is not okay. And then I found out the real reason on top of everything. I found out when we were talking about the door when she was exiting. She's like, and she was trying to joke about it to make me feel better, but I wasn't. Remember, she was like trying to joke. She's like, yeah.
That's like, it's like something like how me and him like were first talking.
I was like, how did you get in D&D, by the way? She goes,
oh, we were just hanging out and then we were friends and like we hung out sometimes.
I'm like, oh, like that one time back then, like what Ben told me.
Oh no, that was just like a silly little trivial thing.
When was that again?
Well, that was like a little bit when I started D&D, like right before. But don't worry, there wasn't a date or anything.
I didn't ask you that. I asked, what was that? She got like a little bit like sidetracked and tried to like change the story around.
Oh, well, we were just hanging out and stuff and like, well, things like could have happened, but it didn't and stuff. But like, I just wasn't interested in him. But you guys were like so cute together.
And then I had an epiphany in my head. I was like, this really just tried to set me up with someone who tried to get with her. And as soon as he tried to have feelings for her, she literally left for 6 months and then recently came back when she had a boyfriend so that he would leave her alone. And she tried to push him on to me. And it made it easier because he thought I was attractive. So she like tried to put 2 and 2 together to make him be with me. But that's just not cool, dude. That's just not f***ing cool. I was like, no. No, you don't do that to people. That's not okay. I told her, I said, don't ever hook me up with anyone ever again in your dearest dreams. Don't. So that's one thing that she did wrong that I will still hold to this friendship. The other things that she did was very like racially charged. One example would be when I asked her like a few months after being friends, if not a year, I was just curious because sometimes you ask your friends this or even in relationships, what made you so interested in me and becoming like, you know, friends or in a relationship? Like what made you want to be my friend? I talked to her about that.
Oh, well, I thought you were a very beautiful person of color cosplayer dressed up as Belle.
Like, really? And I was like, okay.
And I just thought that was so different. I thought that was so beautiful and I just really wanted to get to know you.
So wait, that's it?
Yeah.
So my skin color, my ethnicity got you into being my friend only?
Oh, I mean, of course there were other things and stuff, but like, yeah, that got me.
And I was like, I don't know about you guys, but that's kind of a little bit strange if you ask me. I don't know, something about that was just off. I was like, so it wasn't the fact that I was being silly or joyful or, oh, I liked the way that you presented your cosplay, like how in the modern way. But it kind of like made me nervous because I was like, is that really the only thing you notice about me is my race? I dismiss it, and at this point, I was getting my hair done one time. We were supposed to hang out after to get food or whatever, and we don't really see each other often, so we catch up getting food or whatever. I was like, hey, I gotta get my hair braided, because sometimes I get my hair braided or I get my hair straightened. But I had to get my hair braided this time, but I had my huge afro poof out. He comes over, because I was like, you can come over and watch me get my hair braided and whatnot. And then like after we can get food, she's like, yeah, sure. Comes over, she's like,
Wow, your hair's so big.
because like I washed it and it's like all poofy now. You know, she asked because she was nervous, but I was like, yeah, you can touch it if you want. She goes,
Okay.
touched it. She's like,
Wow, it's like touching a big black sheep.
I was like, okay, you can stop touching now. I told my sister that story. She goes, what the fuck? I was like, yeah. I don't get along with my sister that often, but a lot of people, when I tell them these stories that she's done to me, they get really aggressively mad, but it's for right reasons. After that, we get to get food. She goes with me to get my hair braided after that. I didn't say any comment about that. Like, she felt uncomfortable that she said it. I'm like, why did you say something racist? And then you feel uncomfortable by it because now I'm uncomfortable. Maybe you shouldn't have said it. So when I got my hair done, she was like so quiet and just sitting there still. Like, she was nervous to be there. I'm like, if you didn't want to be here, you shouldn't have came. I mean, I offered, you didn't have to come. So after that, we get our food and whatever. So another incident after that, because we did have good times and then we also had bad times. There's 2 incidences that led me into like breaking the friendship off completely. And there's like another information of her trying to keep up the date. When my dad got married before he passed away, right? He got remarried to my stepmom that he's been dating for 12 to 13 years. So she's like a real mom to me, really. I remember this because like my dad would always hassle me. When are you having a kid? When are you gonna get married? When do you have a partner? Because I was single for so long and I lived by myself. So you gonna do that? I'm like, I'm so tired of you saying that, father. At this point, I was just like, I just don't want to hear it anymore. And I was telling her that in the car because she came to pick me up from the airport and she was supposed to spend the night at my house, but we went to go get food before we could hang out for the night, right? And then go to sleep. We're going to this like KFC/Taco Bell fast food place. So I was telling her, I was like venting. I was like, oh, I'm just so mad right now.
I understand. I get you.
I'm so sorry. I'm just like venting.
Oh, it's okay.
I was like, I just get so mad when he keeps asking me when am I gonna have kids. Like, I'm not a baby feeding machine. I'm pretty upset at myself because I was like, that's already, at that time it was an insecurity for me that I wasn't in a relationship with someone. But now I know that it's okay because the right person hasn't come yet. The part that got me really upset about this friendship is that when we were in line, she paid at the first window because I said, are you sure you want to pay for this?
Like, yeah, I got it.
I said, are you sure?
She's like, yeah. I got you.
Once again, she's not a complete bad person, but she did do some things that were not okay. And it's still pretty hard for me to swallow because like she did tell me in the comfort of herself that it was hard for her to make friends and that she didn't know why some friendships fail. So that's why I really tried with this friendship for you guys. That's why I'm like trying to tell you why I ended this friendship. It was to a point where she never apologized for certain things that you should have. And I can't keep repeating things to you for you to understand that some things are wrong. You have to hold yourself accountable. Continuing on with the story. Before we even go to the second window, like that little in between before you go to the second window, this is where I fucked up. And I was like, I'm just so tired of this crap. I was ignoring the fact that the cashier might have heard me or might not. And she's like getting the food, you know, paying for it and stuff while she's listening to me. Like, I'm sorry if I'm venting. She goes,
Oh, it's okay. He just probably thinks I'm an N lover.
Run.
use the N word with the G in it. R-O. Have y'all seen Roots? Because that's the word she used. I can't. I was like, no, sis. As she said that while she was driving through to go to the second, I was like, she's like,
What? And
she's getting food and I look over at it, I'm like, and then she got it. She understood what she was like,
oh.
yeah, so it was pretty crazy. Like, I tried to move the conversation. I guess she dropped me off at home. She's like,
Yeah, I'm just gonna drop you off at
I
home.
was like, you sure you said you were gonna spend the night? And she goes,
No, I'm okay. I'm fine.
and then after that, we didn't talk for some while until my dad passed away. And I understood that, but I was so hurt and flabbergasted. I didn't even know what to do with myself. She just said the N-word. They used the root. Unless it was ER, but she didn't use the ER. She used the older terminology. And she never apologized for it. That's the worst part. I say that not to diss her, but because the 2 to 3 weeks, like when my dad got married and then when he passed away, she didn't even apologize at all. And then when I called her because I needed someone to talk to because my dad passed away, I didn't know who to talk to. I was emotionally kind of like withdrawn and just dysfunctioned. I was like so upset. And so she came over, she consoled me. She was a good friend in that moment and it was really comforting. She was like, are you hungry? Do you want something to eat? Like, I was just so out of it because I just lost someone I really cared about. So I'm sitting on the couch crying my heart out, you know, because I lost my dad and he's like a best friend to me. She went to go get me something to drink and stuff. She's like, what movie do you want to watch? Because we were going to sleep on the pull-out couch together. And I was like, well, just anything that's like happy-go-lucky. Like, and I always watch happy-go-lucky things, whether it's Disney or not, because it always makes me lift my spirits and I don't have to think about the negative. Like, it gets the negative out of my mind. I have this movie we can watch and I looked it up and it seems really good. And I guess she thought it would be a good movie. But once again, it was the Chris Rock version of Death at a Funeral. It wasn't the white version of that movie. It was just that movie. It wasn't any other movie that we watched. It was just that movie. This is the friend who's into scary movies. I'm not into scary movies. She would always make me watch scary movies on top of that. I was like, hey, I don't want to watch this movie. And she's like, why? I was like, no offense. I have to go to a funeral tomorrow that you have to take me to the airport so I can go to my dad's funeral tomorrow. I really don't want to be here to watch a funeral before I go to an actual funeral. Like, that just doesn't, and it's a black funeral movie and I have to go to a black family drama tomorrow. You guys don't know already, I'm biracial, I'm black and white. So you're not gonna
This is not that bad, you know, it doesn't seem like a bad movie.
I'm like, but I don't want to watch it. And I told her, I was like, I just don't want to watch it. She's one of those people that like try to persuade you to ask why and then try to like change your mind about it. Look, Burma, I don't want to watch the movie. And I'm like, unfortunately, we ended up watching the movie and I felt like, I mean, there were funny parts here and there, but I still was like more agitated about watching it.
So what do you think of the movie? Wasn't it good?
No, it wasn't. Because I didn't want to watch the fucking movie. So the next day I had drama to deal with once again. During this whole time, she never apologized for not only saying the N-word, but also the fact she never apologized for forcing me to watch a movie I didn't want to watch Because she said it's either we watch this movie or we watch a scary movie. I don't want to watch either one of those. Distraught. And then the fact that you manipulate the fact that I have to watch something, 2 different things I hate the most. Not that I hate scary movies, but I really don't watch scary movies. I get nightmares and I don't like them. To be forced to pick between 2 options I hate the most, that's just not cool, dude, you know? And people shouldn't do that. So if out of all these signs, if your friends do this, please let them the go. Already told them how you felt? Leave them. I just stopped talking to her completely. I cut off all communication. And normally it would be sometimes me reaching out anyways, besides her reaching out to me. But she knows I'm already busy and sometimes she gets busy, so it was a great excuse. The 2 years of course got in the way of things. You know. Most recently, I want to say a year ago, if not this past May, she reached out to me saying,
hey, I'm in town, you know, and I have my sister, her mom lives in your complex, and I was wondering if you wanted to hang out with me and my boyfriend. I know you're probably maybe so mad at me for moving out of town and not telling you.
And I was like, what are you talking about? You didn't even tell me. I don't care. I'm more mad that you said the N-word and didn't apologize. And then made me watch a movie on my dad's funeral, like the day before my dad's funeral, about a black family at a funeral. What the fuck is wrong with you? To this day, I still haven't talked to her. There are 2, if not 3 other stories about toxic friends that I've had that I had to relinquish because they are not healthy for you for a reason. But I'm very happy to be on my own, and even though I can't physically spend time with friends, I have the people that matter. Even if they're so far away, that just gives me more of an excuse to not only visit them, but to visit a new state, a new place, and it makes you feel more confident about yourself. It's a lot of other stories that are extreme. There's a lot of stuff I've been through, I just don't talk about it because people are like, that can't be real. No, it really does happen. People are just too embarrassed to talk about it. But yes, if you guys want to hear more Kawaii stories, go ahead and hit the like button. And if you're interested in just watching me, whether it's a Kawaii story time or just a daily vlog, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification. But hold on, my neighbor is being a peeping Tom. But that's just me. My neighbor is being annoying. So. My neighbor's creeping. I'm sorry. Okay, so I'm gonna leave you guys here. Any ideas for vlogs or like places I should go to? Put it down in the comments down below. Don't forget to spread peace, love, and happiness. And it's only up to you to make every day beautiful. I'll see you, ladies and gents, later.